A fleet of shadow tankers has successfully evaded the US naval blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, despite Donald Trump insisting the operation is a success. Washington is reportedly gearing up for a second round of crunch peace talks in Pakistan, with the president considering sending JD Vance again to get a deal over the line. Trump has attempted to force Iran to the negotiating table by blockading the Strait of Hormuz and cutting it off from vital oil and gas exports.
Well, he's done a good job, and Steve and Jared, they've all done a very good job. And I can tell you that we've been called by the other side. They'd like to make a deal very badly, very badly.
I think everybody knew, except President Trump, that this is the Iranian trump card. This is the one thing that Iran can hold the world's feet to the fire, because the Straits of Hormuz generate, if the Straits of Hormuz are open, the price of oil is, $50 a barrel. If it's shut, it's plus $100 a barrel, and people are paying, instead of paying £1.40 for a litre of fuel, they're paying £2. And that's the same sort of idea across the planet, even in the USA. So it is so vital that the Straits of Hormuz are open. Now, 20% of the world's oil goes through the Straits of Hormuz. So lots of people were thinking, well, what about the other 80%? The other 80% is not enough to cater for the loss of 20% out of the Straits of Hormuz. And that's why the price has gone up. And that's why the Iranians have blocked it off. Now, in this counter move by the Americans, after the failing of the ceasefire talks in Pakistan last weekend, it was, people were interested, what on earth was Trump going to do? I suppose he could have stopped the ceasefire and started bombing Iran again. He did say he was going to wipe them off the planet, which potentially suggested he was going to nuke them. Now, that really would be the worst possible scenario. So he's decided now to block the Straits of Hormuz. Basically, I suppose his line is, if Western oil can't get out of the Straits, nor is the Iranian oil. And Iran is producing an unbelievable amount of oil. Most of it is going to China. Now, by blocking it, and what the Americans are doing, as far as I understand it, is they're not blocking the straits per se. What they're doing is picketing the ports and Hague Island, where this oil comes from, with US warships. Now, because the Americans and Israelis have already pretty much destroyed the Iranian Navy, the Iranian Air Force, there is not much the Iranians can do about it. So the inference, what Trump has said, is that the American Navy and Air Force will not allow any passage of ships, and if anybody tries it, they will be taken out. So in effect, that has stopped the flow of oil out of the Straits of Hormuz, including Iranian tankers. Therefore, all the money that Iran was getting, it is not getting. It's a little bit like the Ukrainians strangling the Russian oil industry to prevent all the foreign currency that Putin was getting to fuel his war machine. So on the face of it, it seems like a reasonably logical thing for the Americans to do. But maybe it's the least worst thing the Americans could have done. But ultimately, what the world needs is for the Straits of Hormuz to be open, so that Iranian oil can flow to China, Kuwaiti and Saudi oil can flow to the rest of the world, and we can get oil back below $100 to $50 a barrel, because this price of oil, price of hydrocarbons, is potentially creating real dramas in the world economy. And I think the World Bank today is saying, the potential for recession. So it might seem, a tiny thing to affect the planet so badly, but that is absolutely it. But it seems that Trump, the only real leverage he's got is to try and strangle the Iranian economy at the moment. Otherwise, he's going to have to go back to bombing and blitzing it. And really, from what Trump has said, they've achieved just about as much as they can here. So we'll see how it unfolds. there is a view that there is a deal between the Americans, the Iranians, pretty close, and maybe this is Trump just squeezing tighter and tighter on Iran to make sure that they come to the table. But even a autocracy or like Iran, the Iranian people cannot eat nothing. They can't breathe on thin air, as it were. So that seems to be the idea, to completely strangle Iran. So it comes to the ceasefire table. We have a viable ceasefire, and the Iranians agree. The fundamental thing that Trump seems to want is no nuclear weapons and handing over the enriched uranium. That seems to be behind it, and we're going to have to see if it's going to be successful or not.
Iran, you marking it down? Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. And we agreed to a lot of things, but they didn't agree to that. And I think they will agree to it. I'm almost sure of it. In fact, I am sure of it. If they don't agree, there's no deal. There'll never be a deal. Iran will not have a nuclear weapon, and we're going to get the dust back. We'll get it back either. We'll get it back from them or we'll take it. We can't let a country blackmail or extort the world, because that's what they're doing. They're really blackmailing the world. We're not going to let that happen.
It comes after China breezed past Donald Trump's Strait of Hormuz blockade, with its US-sanctioned tanker passing by American warships unchallenged. Tensions are rising after Iran ally China warned that the US blockade around Iranian ports was dangerous and irresponsible.
I mean, this is a fascinating and interesting dynamic, how these things play out. And one hopes that there's some really sensible people in the Pentagon making sure these decisions are made. But certainly if China's not getting its cheap oil, its economy is being forced and strangled. Now, China is more interested in commercial activity than sort of military activity. So it's quite a powerful thing. I understand that a Chinese tanker has already turned round and has not gone through the Straits of Hormuz. I absolutely don't think there is any way the Americans would attack a Chinese tanker. I expect what they would do is perhaps board it and turn it around. So very fine things here. We have seen some extraordinary decisions being made by the US president, but I expect in this particular case, China is the key pivot here. And if the Chinese put additional pressure on Iran and the mullahs in Tehran, they are more likely to agree to the American president's demands. But I do not see any way the Americans would attack a Chinese tanker.